Good morning. It is such a pleasure to be here. I am here to tell you that you're more powerful than you think. You see, a couple days ago, actually 2 weeks ago, it was raining in San Diego, and I took my daughter and her friend to the beach. And it was one of those magical days. There was foam 6 inches thick on the beach. My daughter and her friend were running through it. There was windy, and the foam was flying through the air. Then it started pouring, and a rainbow came across the sky. Actually, it was a double rainbow. And my daughter and her friend were standing at the water's edge, and they were using their superpowers. Actually, I was corrected last night. I said to my daughter, they were pretending to use their superpowers. And my daughter said, "Mommy, we weren't pretending." They were using their superpowers to stop the water from getting us soaked because they just had seen the movie Frozen. And they thought, they still think, they can freeze the water and not get wet. We went home soaked, just so you know. But the sad thing is that in a few short years, they, like you, will probably believe they won't have superpowers. I'm here and determined to be sure that they do believe they have superpowers. I also am here because I believe that we all have superpowers. The superpower that I'm talking about today is intuition. The definition of intuition from Wikipedia is the ability to acquire knowledge without inference or the use of reason. Processes by which they happen typically remain mostly unknown to the thinker, as opposed to our view of rational thinking. Intuition provides us with views, understandings, judgments, or beliefs that we cannot, in every case, empirically verify or rationally justify, until now. So 6 days ago, Bobby Cicio called me and asked if I would fill in because 2 speakers weren't able to speak. And I, without question, said, of course I'd jump in. And how my life has had it over the last 48 years is that coincidences happen in beautiful ways. So what happened is this came across, I'm a huge advocate of the relationship between mind and body, biology and psychology. So this came across my desk just a couple days after. I said, sure, Bobby, I'd be happy to. Literally, the article read, "A New Science Behind Gut Decisions," exactly what I was speaking about. This particular article came from Dr. Dan Siegel, clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA. In this article, he went on to talk about how we have neurons in our brains. We all know about this. It's not new. It's not science. It's not anything new to us. These neurons help us think, and they actually learn. They're very smart. But what was new to me is these exact neurons also exist in our intestines, our heart, and our bones. Interesting. So now we have rationale for why we have gut decisions. It made total sense. What was even more interesting to me is that people that have these physical sensations in their bodies when you're going to make a decision also are people that have more empathy. Makes sense, doesn't it? Very simple. So that is, in my mind, wisdom from our bodies. And there's so much to talk about when it comes from wisdom from our bodies. So back to my girls with superpowers. I'm just going to read what I want to say next to stick to the script. Innately, these girls know that they have superpowers. They play with them. They pretend, in spite of what my daughter says. But what if they could take them into adulthood and really use them in every single aspect of their life? What if you gave up your superpowers from a childhood and you didn't have to, and you can get them back today? You see, my story is, the past few years of my life, I've been on a personal journey that has been the most challenging of my life. One I cannot elaborate on because it's still in process. What I can tell you was there was one particular day at the beginning of what I call my spiritual trek that I had to make a conscious choice to choose either to crumble or jump in. I chose to jump in. I chose to jump into the situation as the greatest student of this thing I call my spiritual trek. I chose to jump into being 100% aligned with my core values: love, integrity, and personal growth. I chose to jump into being my own superhero, because what I know is when we step into victim, our superpowers go out the window. I chose to jump into manifesting the life of my dreams. I chose to jump into living a life of passion and deep connection with those in my circle. And I chose to jump into the adventure of the complete and utter unknown after the rug was pulled out from under every aspect of my life. I chose to take that that rug and turn it into my own magic carpet. Crumbling would have been easier, but not the wiser. You see, what happened after that was the most amazing coincidences that if I told you, you'd say, Lorin, you're making it up. But I don't make any of it up. Every single coincidence I couldn't make up. It's better than that, actually. So I'm going to share just 3 coincidences with you that happened since the day that I referred to shortly ago. The first one, it was at Christmas time. My daughter and I just decorated the Christmas tree. And the next morning came bebopping down the stairs, and I heard this big crash in the living room where the Christmas tree was. The ornament fell from the tree and smashed into 1,000 pieces. Curiously, I went over to see which ornament it was. If I were to choose one ornament on that tree that represented my spiritual trek, it was that ornament, smashed into 1,000 pieces. You get to decide. Actually, only I get to decide. We all get to decide the meaning of our coincidences, or synchronicities, or clues. The second one, I was reading a book about my spiritual trek, and I'm a learner. I dive in and I want to learn every aspect of what it is that I'm dealing with. In my whole life, I've always been like this. So in this particular day, I was in a little car shop getting my car serviced here in Encinitas, reading a book about my current situation. And mind you, this is not a situation that everybody deals with. It's actually a small percentage of the population gets to deal with this one. So I was reading this book, and the woman behind the counter, the service counter, saw my book, and she came over and she started sharing extremely intimate aspects of her life when she was a child and said, I've been through that too, and this is what it was like for me. And I sat there dumbfounded and speechless. I couldn't believe the things she was sharing with me. She was like she was telling me about my life, things that I have never shared with anybody before. The third story is my favorite. It happened actually 46 years ago in 2 days. So 46 years ago in 2 days, my sister was born, and my parents left the house and left me with my grandmother. At that point, my grandmother said she didn't remember me speaking. I was such a shy child and didn't say much. My parents left and closed the door, and I looked up at my grandmother and I said, Grandma, let's talk. And from that point forward, my grandmother and I talked and talked and talked for the rest of her life. She died about 6 years ago, and when my spiritual trek started, I was wishing I could talk to my grandmother. I wish I could pick up the phone and say, Grandma, let's talk, because I knew she'd have wisdom, and I knew she'd have humor, and I knew she'd have direction for me. But my brain knew that that wasn't possible. I was getting the mail around that time, and I was flipping through the mail, as we all do, sorting the junk mail from the real mail, the bills, right? And there was a piece of junk mail, a big postcard, one of those big mega postcards that I normally would have just thrown away. Big, huge letters on the front of it. Let's talk. I can't make that stuff up. I live by this these days. Albert Einstein said, if you are not in awe, you are not paying attention. These days, the hardest time in my life, I am more in awe than ever. I look for magic every day. I wake up and I wonder, what magic will I get to experience today? I walk through life every day more grateful than I've ever been in the hardest time in my life. I want that for the world. I want to encourage you today to jump in, not to encourage, I want to call you forth to jump in to your superpowers and follow your intuition. What I find, and the people that I work with for work, I find that they don't really know how to follow their intuition. So I stopped this week and I asked myself, how do I do that? And I wanted to share 5 simple steps so that you can better follow your intuition and get back your superpower today. Step 1, trust yourself and trust the universe. I did not say trust everyone. Did you hear me? So I trust myself. I trust the quiet whispers, and I trust the very loud yells. I listen to those seriously. I also trust the universe. When the universe puts synchronicities in place that I know we can't manufacture them the way, like to have the speaker this morning just before me. Wait till you hear the next person speaking. You know, he just laid the groundwork so beautifully. I trust the universe. With all my heart, I trust. Step 2, notice the first thing that comes to you when you ask yourself the question, What should I do? This is an important step, and I try not to ask it as the actress in my own movie. I try to ask it from a place of perspective, like I'm watching a movie of somebody else. And I look at what that actress, what her choices are. And I try to find many choices versus just one. Oftentimes we get so stuck emotionally into one choice. I try to step back and watch the movie. Step 3, notice the answer to the question, does it create fear or does it create enthusiasm? Enthusiasm, again by Wikipedia, says enthusiasm originally meant inspiration or by the presence of a god. Originally, an enthusiast was a person possessed by a god. Fascinating. So I try to follow, step 4, I try to choose the path or direction that creates enthusiasm. Now, if we were to stop here, we'd have a lot of very self-focused people in the world, correct? That's a problem. So step 5, is to double check yourself. Does your decision align with your self-interest, and is it good for the whole? Because if it's good for the whole world and the bigger situation, then go forth and jump in with all you've got. And if it's no, pause and listen. And no does not mean never. No means just not now. It might be 5 minutes from now. It might be 5 weeks from now, 5 years or 5 centuries. But the time is not, that's why we need patience. It's such a tool for me. Patience is such a great tool. So my call to action today is listen to your enthusiastic whispers and live the life you were born to live. So I'd like to use my superhero, who inspires me every single day, and my superpower honors your superpower, because I know that if you use your superpower in your personal life, with your children, at your work, that we can change the world, because I believe this is a 21st century leadership skill. And I also know that every choice has an end. Thank you.